Thy soul shall find itself alone, mid dark thoughts of the grey tombstone. Not one of all the crowd to pry into thine hour of secrecy. Be silent in that solitude, which is not loneliness, for then the spirits of the dead who stood in life before thee are again in death around thee, and their will shall overshadow thee. Be still. The night, though clear, shall frown, and the stars shall not look down from their high thrones in the heaven, with light like hope to mortals given. But their red orbs without beam to thy weariness shall seem as a burning and a fever, which would cling to thee forever. Now our thoughts thou shalt not banish, now our visions ne'er to vanish. From thy spirit shall they pass, no more like dewdrop from the grass. The breeze, the breath of God is still, and the mist upon the hill, shadowy, shadowy, yet unbroken, is a symbol and a token. How it hangs upon the trees, a mystery of mysteries. Greetings and welcome to the Season 2 premiere of the Schorr Manor podcast. What you just heard was a little poem by the legendary Edgar Allan Poe. We want to do things a little bit different this year with classic, creepy, gothic poems by American and European poets. And we thought that the legendary Poe was the best way to start. And there's a good chance that we'll be revisiting him later throughout the season. What you heard there was Spirits of the Dead, and it was written in the 19th century. Hope you enjoyed that one. Last year, we told you guys all about our trip to the TransWorld Halloween Attractions Show. We went back this year, and we decided that for this year's opening podcast, we wanted to tell you about that experience again, but we wanted to do it a little bit different. We wanted to actually give you our thoughts and experiences as we were there. So what we did was we recorded a whole bunch of, I guess you'd call them live journals describing our thoughts and feelings of the event. I mean, we started with the trip up, riding in the car. We recorded in our hotel. We recorded at the event. We recorded like we were going to get food. So we really tried to give a really inclusive, all-encompassing description of this experience. We had a phenomenal time there, and I really think it shows through when we just talk about this place. So I hope you guys enjoy our descriptions of it too. I won't keep you guys waiting any longer. Without any further ado, here is the Schorr Manor return to TransWorld. Okay, we are on the road. I suspect everyone can hear the sound of the car in the background. Makes some nice ambiance for this trip, don't you think?
Yep, welcome back to the Schorr Manor podcast. This is Matt and Amanda here. We are on our way to the TransWorld Horror Haunted Attractions Show 2019.
Yeah, this is the second time we have done this, and the weather is 100 times better than it was last year. Of course, you were unconscious for most of that last year, but you must remember a little bit of how bad that was.
All I remember is it literally sleeting on us in St. Louis as we were walking to and from our car.
Well, let me elaborate, because it literally sleeted the entire trip for me. We were just inside the car, I guess, so I got to dodge a little bit of that. Last year we drove through Missouri. This year we're going to be going through Illinois, because we're staying on the Illinois side of St. Louis this time, because I got a Candlewood Suites room for us this time around rather than Holiday Inn, but it's all IHG.
Yes, so this is, for the second year in a row, my Valentine's Day present, and we are so excited. We had so much fun last year. We can't wait to go this year. I like to tell the story of how I did get made fun of by a guy who owns 3 or 4 haunted attractions in, I believe, Wisconsin or Minnesota. I can't remember which state he said. He was like, "That's funny, you're coming to a haunted house convention, but you don't like haunted houses."
I remember that conversation. I don't know if this is going to be a tradition or not. It'd be kind of cool if it was. But yeah, I slid a sign or a printout of this attraction show that we're going to into Amanda's Valentine's Day card without telling her. But I feel like with all the likes I was doing for TransWorld throughout the year, that she knew exactly what she was going to get. But am I right, or did you know? Was it still a surprise?
It was still a surprise. I had wondered if we were going to go. However, I am currently, I know you guys are listening to this later on, but right now I am 30 weeks pregnant. For those of you who have been pregnant, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who have not been pregnant, it's not a very easy thing to go and walk a whole lot when you're this pregnant.
Yeah, we'll probably take a few breaks, stop for lunch, then maybe come back. I don't know. We'll play it by ear, and anytime we can find a bench for you to sit down on, we'll probably try to take advantage of that. Sit next to a skeleton or something like that.
Which there were not very many last year, so I'm a little bit worried about it. But I'm sure we'll have a good time. We may have to stop and go get lunch and go back to the room and take a nap or something and then come back later. But I'm excited. I can't wait to go and see all the new ideas and things people have. We mainly go just to look and see what people are doing and see if there's anything that like we could do on a smaller scale in our own yards. Like obviously not the exact same thing that these people are doing, but something kind of similar.
Yeah, a lot of times when I see the stuff that they have, I find myself just standing there saying, man, I wish I could do something like this.
A lot of their props are huge. Like we're talking like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 props that they're selling because they are targeting actual haunted houses.
Yeah, regardless of all that, it's very inspiring for us, and we have I'm sure we'll have a great time again. We had a great time last time, and yeah, that's really all I've got for now, so why don't we just let this go, and we'll check in again later, maybe when we get to the hotel room.
All right, we'll talk to you guys in a little bit.
Perfect. Okay, we are about, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes away from the hotel right now. And of course, the inevitable has happened. And Amanda is currently asleep beside me in the car. So, yeah, just like so many of our trips, I have to make at least half of it by myself, all alone in the dark. But I suppose going to a horror attraction show, that's only appropriate, right? Anyway, I'm trying to be quiet so that I don't wake her up, but I wanted to add one important thought to what we said earlier about going to this show. I know I said that this is a Valentine's gift from me to her, but really it's a little bit selfish on my part. And not just because I have a good time at this show, and I do. I have a great time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it again and just seeing all the amazing decorations that are going to be there. But one of the things that makes this experience so enjoyable for me is seeing how much fun Amanda has at this, going around and seeing all these sites and walking through some of the miniature walkthroughs that people create. She had such a great time last year that was for me. That was my enjoyment of it. And I know this probably sounds hokey and cheesy, but I really do honestly get a lot of joy in life out of seeing her really excited and enjoying something. And that's the biggest thing for this trip for me that I'm really looking forward to tomorrow when we go in and see all these great attractions and great sights and costumes and props and everything. I really just look forward to seeing those reactions from her and seeing the fun and the great time that she's having. That's my great time. That's the gift I kind of give back to myself. So anyway, I just wanted to add that, and looking forward to tomorrow. I think we're going to have a great time.
Okay, so we just checked into Candlewood Suites, and we're all settled in. How was the trip for you?
It was fun. I slept the whole way.
So quite restful and peaceful for you.
Sure, we'll go with that. I don't know there is such a thing as restful sleep when you're this far pregnant.
I kept the ride fairly smooth though, wouldn't you say? That? I mean, it's rough roads out there, but I like to think I dodged some of the major potholes.
If you hit any, I didn't feel it, so.
See, that's some skill right there. So, yeah, we're settled in. We're at Candlewood Suites. We really like this place. And now we're going to check out the Orville because in addition to being big horror fans, we are also big science fiction fans. Am I right?
That is right.
And Amanda is especially a fan of Abortus, right?
Yeah, but he's not my favorite.
Okay. Well, that'll do for tonight, but we will check back in tomorrow when we go to all things scary and horrifying at the Halloween convention in downtown St. Louis.
Yep, we will check back in with you guys tomorrow.
Good night.
All right, so that's day one, which we spent almost entirely on the road, as you can see. If you're wondering what we did with Callum, we dropped him off with the grandparents in Mayfield, Kentucky. This event doesn't allow children under 16 years of age, so he was not allowed to go. But he had a good time spending the weekend with his grandparents. As for Rowan, she was about as underage as it gets, being as she hadn't been born yet. But we were able to smuggle her in thanks to Amanda, and nobody seemed to notice or say much of anything about it. But if they did, what were they going to do, right? Anyway, this brings us to the main part of this episode, TransWorld itself. So let's move on to that now, where things really got spooky.
Okay, so the day is half over. What are your thoughts?
I think it's amazing. It was amazing last year, but it is definitely better this year. There's a lot more vendors. We have done half of the floor. We still have half of it to go. And based on the way it was set up last year, I think we're saving the best for last.
Definitely. We saw the dark room, and I cannot wait to get back for that. But right now, I definitely cannot wait to get some tacos for lunch. How about you?
Yes, Rowan is definitely wanting some tacos. She got some nachos earlier, so she's doing pretty good, but she is wanting some tacos, so here we go.
And just to illustrate the uniqueness of this experience, as we speak right now, we're being passed by grown men jogging along the street in green dresses. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm utterly confused because St. Patrick's Day was last week, so I don't know.
Maybe in St. Louis, every day is St. Patrick's Day, the way for us Halloween is every day.
Possibly. I would say so far that my favorite thing that we have seen was definitely the zombie cooler that's shaped like a coffin.
That was pretty fantastic. We're still torn over whether or not we want to get that. We may just have to go back and get that one. My favorite thing that we saw was probably those big monster head props poking through the cabin door thing there at the very end before we went to lunch. Remember that one?
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And I think I also was rather amused by the time I was trying to get a picture with one of those guys in costume and he got away from me and you had the phone and I took it back and said, yeah, maybe next time. And all you said was, no. And right about then I looked up and saw that they were doing body paint on some woman as a zombie or something. I don't know.
And she was naked, okay? Let's just preface that.
Yeah, there's a reason you have to be 16 or older for this show. But for now, we're going to have some lunch and then we'll check back in later. All right, well, we are back in this glorious hotel room right now. No place ever looked better. After a long day on our feet, we're definitely excited to be laying down. I'm going to settle in for a comedy. We're going to try The Honeymooners, which we have not seen, which hopefully will be fun. We'll find out here in just a little bit. But in the meantime, we thought we'd stop, take a look at everything that we did today, and recap all of the great fun that we had. One of the highlights, of course, was at the very beginning. Well, actually, let me start with right after lunch, I guess. We won't name the place, but lunch was a little bit disappointing, we'll just say. But on the bright side, that's the one and only downside of the day that I would say. Would you agree with everything else was quite good, right?
Yeah, it was just like I'm not a spicy food eater, period. And for some reason, like I'm the opposite when I get, well, not the opposite, but most pregnant women like really spicy food. But I actually am more sensitive to it while I'm pregnant. It's been that way for both pregnancies. I mean, even as far as like I can't hardly eat pepper. So we went to a Mexican restaurant and got some tacos. And I don't know, just the whole experience was not good. I don't know if it was my pregnancy taste buds or what, but like the salsa tasted weird. The taco itself was super spicy. It wasn't just a ground beef taco. It didn't taste like, it tasted like it had like a lot of cayenne pepper or something in it. And then like I ordered Spanish rice because I love Spanish rice. And even that, it came out steaming hot temperature-wise, and it was spicy as well. So the only like good thing was their queso chip, but their chips were like covered in salt, so I couldn't even hardly eat the chips because they were so salty.
Those chips were salty, and I got my plate was just a platter of just nachos, and I don't know, it wasn't, the cheese was good, but everything else was it was just disappointing. Good service, all things considered, especially since it looked like everybody from TransWorld went there to eat. So they kept pace pretty well, but I don't know, it was just kind of disappointing. But we don't want to name names because we're not out to make anybody look bad.
No, definitely not. So.
Yeah. But when we got back, one thing that to me was, I don't know how good a view you got of this, but of course we took a whole bunch of photos and I took a whole bunch of videos, and we got to this one setup where they had what looked like this kind of gargoyle / demon looking thing that it looked like this animatronic prop with wings coming, just opening and closing. So I got in position just right in front of it to take a video. And I wish so badly that I had been recording when I did this, but I had not started yet. Milliseconds before I could even start recording, it turns out what I thought was an animatronic prop was a man in a suit who jumped out and charged me. It made me jump right out of my skin. And then I just spun around and just started laughing just because he got me. Everybody saw it. There was no way to save face. Did you witness this happen to me?
I did not witness it happen. However, I had seen at the same booth, there was a guy dressed in a pig, like with a pig's mask costume on, and he was blending into the background as well. He was holding up like it looked like he was holding up like an oil drum pouring into like something that was actually part of a stationary prop, and he just had his arms up. And I mean, kudos to this guy, because I mean, he would stand there for 5 minutes solid without moving with his arms up like that, which is not easy to do. Your arms get super sore after a while. And then all of a sudden he would run out at somebody. And so I had seen that happen. And I was actually doing some Marco Polo videos. If you don't know what Marco Polo is, it's an app you can use to talk to friends and family, kind of like texting, but it's all videos. And so I was filming something on the other side to show my family. And when I see Matt out of the corner of my eye turn around, and I was like, and then I see the gargoyle guy moving as well, and I was like, watch out for the guy in the pig mask, because he's real too.
Yeah, that was a good setup, I have to admit, because it's not easy to startle me, but they pulled it off. So well done. So that might be my highlight of the whole thing, was getting startled, because that did not happen to me last year. So, but it was
me last year.
But much like last year, it was, again, I think last year I likened it to kind of like San Diego Comic-Con, but with Halloween stuff. Just as far as the eye could see was just Halloween props, costumes, just animatronics, and I mean, really amazing things. Like, there were actual full-on houses and cabins in there that you got to walk through. That was It's just so cool, and I don't know, it's just really fun to be in a place surrounded by people with the same sort of appreciation for Halloween as you have,
Yes, it's very nice because it's not that our families don't celebrate Halloween, but they don't fully get into it like we do. I think they don't really understand where we came from. They put out a couple of pumpkins and maybe a couple of jack-o'-lanterns and things, but it's nice to like be in this environment where people don't think you're weird or that you're too into it. I mean, we would probably be like in the minority of people at this convention, like compared to what we do with these people.
That's true, because the people there are full-on professionals, so they're getting just massive props and spending untold amounts of money that we could not possibly comprehend at this point. But it's fun to just be in that environment and see all that cool stuff, and of course take pictures of it and videos of it, all kinds of stuff to share around and show off our love for all things kooky and spooky and weird.
Yes. So, I mean, it's nice to see people that, like, literally eat, sleep, and breathe this. Because, I mean, we pretty much do as well. But it's just on such a grander scale and something we aspire to do.
Maybe someday. One thing that excited me, in addition to being startled, was there was a comic book booth there with an independent publisher with their own book. And I was so excited to purchase a copy of this book. I believe it's called Bloody Mary. I have no idea what this is about, but I got to talk to the artist who drew it. I got to talk to the lady who wrote and created it. And that's just... to me, that's really exciting to get to meet the creators of any kind of story, no matter how grand or how small it might be, and call it cheesy if you will, but I just kind of like to do what I can to support my fellow comic book publishers, writers, just people in the same boat as me. So I was pretty ecstatic to actually buy a comic book while I was here at TransWorld Halloween Attractions Show. I didn't get to do that last year. I lost track of you while I was doing that, though.
I was having, like, some major pain. Rowan felt like she was trying to come out, and my legs are really sore. So I told Matt, like, I have to go sit down. So I went and sat down for a good, probably, like, half an hour, because we really want, as excited as we are to meet her, we want her to stay in for a little bit longer, because it's way too early right now to have her. But I would say, for me, the highlight of the day was the booth with the man who created, I'm assuming he created, the original Zoltar.
Oh, yes.
If you don't know, and most people don't, because it's not something I tell a whole lot of people, I am obsessed with Zoltars. I don't know what it is, but I love it. And so if you go on our Facebook page, you will see pictures of me. There's one from our beach trip over the summer where we went to this store, and there was a Zoltar there, and so I got a picture with it because I love Zoltar. And the guy actually had him set up to give out free fortunes to all of the transgoers.
Transgoers, I like that.
So, there is a picture of me with my fortune from Zoltar. I would absolutely love to own one day, but he's a bit pricey. But my fortune said something about ships are safest in the harbor, but that's not what that's not what the harbor's designed for, or something. Basically, like, to go out and have adventures and things. But I'm so excited. I've got my little fortune. I'm going to keep it and put it in our 2019 photo books that I do. So.
Of course, there's one other thing that you were especially excited about when we wrapped up our day. Your favorite restaurant of all time that we got to go to. And that was...
Hoo Hot. If you are ever in the St. Louis area, you need to go to Hoo Hot. It is the best restaurant ever.
And that's not hyperbole at all.
I wish there was one or one like it anywhere near us. Basically, it's like a Japanese and Thai food restaurant. And what you do is you go to this buffet area and you start with your meat. You pick what meat you want, then you pick your noodles, and then you pick your vegetables to go in your bowl. And then after that you pick your sauce, which, like I said, I'm not a spicy person, so I always get just the kids chicken teriyaki, the kids teriyaki sauce, which is really sweet and it has a lot of flavor to it. And what you do after that, you get in line, and there's this big round hibachi grill that kind of looks like a donut. It's got a hole in the center, and there's, gosh, I don't know, 3 or 4 people cooking at all times. And it's kind of like if you've ever been to like Shogun or Hananoki, where they cook it right in front of you. It's kind of what they do. They're not nearly as theatrical because they cook like 12 people's food all at once. And then you just go and you sit down and eat it. But it is so good, and I love that you get to pick whatever you want. They do also serve like meals if you don't want to do the hibachi grill. So I always order a side of white rice with mine, which tonight the rice did not taste super great. It's usually wonderful. Again, I don't know if it's my pregnancy taste buds or what. However, it did not sour me on the experience of Hoo Hot.
I like Hoo Hot a lot too, and I tested myself this evening. I got their spiciest sauce combination that they have, and I told Amanda as I was eating it, I said, I am right at my limit. I can handle this, but I can't handle anymore because it was hot. It was one of those where it's so hot where when it's over, you still feel the tingling on your lips. That's how hot that stuff was when I ate it. Now, I loved it because I had kind of a little bit of a head cold for me because of the rain that moved in, but this took care of that. That's for sure. I am still clean as a whistle right now. But it's been a really fun trip. I'm really glad we did it. I hope we can do this again. I would love to do this every year. If we were ever lucky enough, I'd love to actually be a part of it. And if I sound distracted right now, it's because I'm actually seeing Rowan kicking and moving around inside Amanda's belly. And it's so weird. It weirds me out more than anything we saw over at TransWorld. But those are all of my thoughts. So it was fun. And any final thoughts from you?
No, I would just, if you're ever able to go to one of these shows, I highly recommend it. It's not like, I think a lot of people think when they think about this that everyone's gonna be dressed up in all these scary costumes and their main goal is to scare everyone. It's not that way. There's a handful of people that do try to make you jump. Thankfully, this year I was pregnant, so most people left me alone for fear of sending me into labor. But there was one guy that did get me. But I would highly recommend going. I felt like this year there wasn't as much gore.
It did seem a little bit less.
Last year, there seemed to be a lot of gore, a lot of fake body props, and there were plenty. Don't get me wrong, there were plenty.
We had that conversation about the guy with the big giant pig. We said this must be to scare the vegetarians and vegan crowd, right?
There was, I don't know, somebody comment or send me a message and tell me why haunted houses use fake pigs in their slaughterhouse scenes. I'm thinking it must be like a cover-up story for the person working in the slaughterhouse. Like, oh, here's all these dead animals, and then all of a sudden there's like the body, on the table. But there didn't seem to be as much gore, which Matt and I both agree for us, gore, buckets of blood is not scary. It's just gross.
Yeah.
That's why we really don't do a lot of haunted houses, like on our own, go and visit them and that kind of thing like people do in October, because to us it's not scary. We don't use those kinds of props. I find it more gross than anything else. And there didn't seem to be as much this year. There was still plenty if that's what you're into and that's what you're looking for. There were a few booths set up like that. But last year it really seemed to be, Matt's going to laugh at this, they really seemed to be very exploitive to women. Like, most of the props were women, and they were either shirtless and in underwear, or maybe they had on a bra and underwear, and they were all bloody and gross, and just, I found it offensive. It seemed like everywhere we turned, there, at least for the first 2 or 3 rows of booths, there was at least one prop that was a woman that had been tied up. There was one, I specifically remember this one, who had like some kind of mask like over her mouth, and her hands were handcuffed behind her back, and she was in a bra and underwear. And to me, like, that is just not, I don't know,
I think it's not so much that it's being done, but that you see it more happening to women in these situations than you do to men.
Yes. There were, in a lot of the booths last year, there did not seem to be any male props. They were all women. And what bothered me was the way they were dressed and the way the scene was set up. That was what really got to me. Because you hear about violence towards women more often than you hear about violence towards men. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because I know that it does. But this is just something that bothers me about it, that it seems to perpetuate the stereotype of women being helpless, and I don't know. It's just, it's not my cup of tea, and I really wish that if haunters are going to use these kinds of props, that they would put clothes on them or have some male props as well. And I know that there are some out there. Again, I'm not saying that they're not. Like, for instance, in the same vein, I guess, we've noticed there are now obese props. Obese people.
Yeah, that was new this year. I don't remember that last year.
Yeah, there were some last year.
Oh, okay.
But they're all male. Every single one of them is a male prop. And you can tell by looking at it that it's definitely supposed to be an obese person who's over like 300 and something pounds.
Yeah.
You don't see any women. So anyways, I know that's a really long rant and soapbox, but I don't like that. I know there's a whole class of people who get, like, turned on by violence towards women, and I feel like this doesn't help that any.
Yeah, the unevenness of it, for lack of a better word, I think is what really stands out to me. Yeah, you're right. The women are the ones really being sexualized, and even though we didn't see it nearly as much this year, by comparison, there were a few props that we saw where there were men who were, like, they were supposed to be cadavers, I guess, or whatever, of men who, like, you could actually, they were wearing, like, you know, whitey-tighty briefs, but they were not meant to look sexy at all. They were, like, supposed to be
very much.
It was supposed to be gross, I guess. Whereas with the women, it was sort of I don't know, it felt a little bit more like it was meant to be. I don't know. It just seemed a bit, it just seemed uneven. Yeah. Just a little uneven, and it's the sort of thing that you're never going to be rid of, I guess, but I think it's still important to bring it up. It's sort of like the never-ending battle, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I was just happy that there weren't as many. I mean, I saw maybe 2 or 3 different kind of bodies like that versus last year where it was like almost at least 1 or 2 booths, like every other booth or whatever had one.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot more this year. The stuff that we liked and we took a lot of pictures with were these giant, ghouls with, pumpkins for heads and steam coming out of their eyes. And that to me, that's cool stuff. And of course, the giant gargoyle that jumped at me and startled me. That's really cool. It's all of the creative, otherworldly stuff that I think you as much as me enjoy seeing. That's what's really fun. Like, even if you take what we've just talked about, the sexualization of women and the sort of unevenness that you see that as opposed to what they do with men, that's just not our cup of tea anyway. Even if this wasn't an issue, we much prefer the ghosts and the goblins and the dragons and skeletons. Yeah, all of that stuff. That's the cool stuff to us. Like there was that giant Grim Reaper. Remember him with like the hands as big as my head? That was like jumping out. That was really cool. So that's the fun stuff for us. And there was much more of that than the negative stuff that we're talking about.
yeah, there was. I mean, I agree with Matt. It seemed a lot less gory and bloody and stuff like that. This year there was more animatronic props. There was more props that actors can wear. There's a picture on Facebook that we took when we first got there, and it's this giant werewolf, and he's animatronic, but yet, and you don't see this in the picture, there was a guy actually operating him as well. So like while his head and his mouth moved and he made noises, you could also like operate his arms and his feet and things like that. Those are why Matt and I go. That's what we like. We like those kinds of things that we could maybe, and I'm not saying we can recreate this specific prop, obviously.
Probably not that one.
But like we like to go and get ideas of things that we could do. There were some really cool headstones that were, I think, customizable.
Yeah, you're right.
That we saw. If you look at our pictures, you'll see me with this big giant Frankenstein head. That was actually, you open up the top of his head and he's a candy bowl. There are lots of masks. Oh, yes, some of my favorite booths. There are costume booths set up. And this is actually where I got my cape. My Sarah Sanderson cape was from TransWorld last year. And so you don't actually buy it there. You order it, and they will ship it to you. My cape, I think, came in June. I ordered it in March, and it took that long to come in, and it was expensive. I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but it was handmade. It's reversible, so whenever I decide to be Morticia, if it's chilly, I can put on this cape and it'll be black, or it can be Sarah Sanderson and it's going to be purple. And it's very thick. It was very well done. It was well worth the amount of money I spent on it. And I did spend this money because we knew we were going to be trying for another baby, and I said, okay, this is the last time I can spend money like this. But the costume booths are amazing too. I mean, it's worth it to go just to see these costumes that these people make. Most of the masks are clown masks or some kind of scary like creature mask.
There were a lot of clowns this year.
Did you feel like there were more clowns this year?
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of the dark room where they had that whole scene of all those clowns, but maybe in there is where I'm thinking there were a lot more clowns. Now that you mention outside on the main exhibit hall, maybe there weren't so many.
Well, last year I feel like clowns were a much bigger deal because of the movie It coming out.
That's true.
This year the main prop that we kept seeing over and over and over again was the Nun.
Yeah.
There were quite a few of those. But you're right. There is one section where it's called the dark zone or the dark room, where they have it sectioned off, and so you can see what the props look like in the dark. We have some photos and some videos we'll be putting up from that, which is probably our favorite part to go in, honestly, and see all of that. But the center section of it, you can walk down each side, and then there's a part in the center, and that part was mainly all clowns and things this year.
Yeah. I also had, did you see they called it skull ball, where it was like those old basketball things, but you threw skulls in the baskets? That was funny.
There were a lot of carnival props this year. In the dark room, there was one that was like a skeleton scene, and it had 4 or 5 skeletons, and it was like ring toss, and you tried to toss the rings like on their hands. And then the one Matt's talking about was this giant skeleton who was probably, what would you say, 20 foot tall?
Oh, easily, yeah.
And he held these baskets in his hands, and he talked, and he was like, you have 15 seconds to try to get a basketball in each basket, but I think they were actually skulls, weren't they, that you threw?
They were.
There was another prop, Matt, I don't know if you saw it, but it was a big giant Grim Reaper, and he was holding an eyeball, and the eyeball was attached to a string that was attached to his, I'm going to say this wrong, scythe.
Oh, yeah.
And you slung it, and you tried to get it back in its hand. And then
I missed that one.
Yeah, it was a funny one. You were actually doing a walkthrough at the time when I saw it. And there were several new booths this year. It was much, much bigger than it was last year. And one of them along like the main wall had there were like clowns playing on a teeter-totter, and then they were doing like a merry-go-round, and they also had clowns going like in a Ferris wheel, which I thought was really neat because I'm really into the carnival thing and would love to expand into a carnival scene for our yard.
Oh, that'd be cool, yeah.
So, also, how many, like at least 3 electric chairs that we saw.
Some that were in use, some that weren't in use, others that were about to be used.
Just, it was interesting to me because we had discussed this a few months ago. I think it would be cool to have an electric chair as a prop for our yard. Not to have somebody sit in and pretend to be electrocuted. No, that's a little bit too scary for the kids in the neighborhood.
And so our spooky adventure at TransWorld comes to a close. We hope you guys had as much fun hearing about it as we did talking about it. If you ever happen to be in the St. Louis area when TransWorld is going on, and you are into Halloween to the same degree that we are, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's a really good time. Really, really fun. And if you have a wife like I do, it makes for a fantastic Valentine's gift. Just putting that out there. So the Halloween season is officially upon us now. I'd like to think that our podcast kicks that off. The decorations are in stores now, and within the next few days, we're going to be decorating our lawn. So we're pretty excited. Hope everybody else is as well. As we wrap things up, though, let me make sure and let you guys know if you ever wanted to reach out to us and get in touch with us, send us a message like Amanda was saying. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Schorr Manor. That's SCHORRMANOR. And of course, you can also reach out to me directly on Twitter at @TheMattSchorr and on Instagram at TheSchorr. On top of that, if you want to send me a direct message, you can reach me by email at mattschorr@hotmail.com. And I have a website, www.mattschorr.net. Also, if you'd like to throw in a little bit of support with us on our Facebook page, there is a link where you can go buy t-shirts showing off your love for all things spooky about Schorr Manor. We'd love to have your support there. And we have a Patreon page where you can check us out and follow us, patreon.com/Schorr Manor. But thank you for checking out this season premiere. Be sure to check back every week until Halloween. We'll be putting out a new episode. In the meantime, stay spooky, and, as always, happy haunting.